Robin Sertell is a survivor of 3 saline infusion abortion attempts. She is a mother, an ordained minister, and the education coordinator for the Abortion Survivors Network. Because Robin survived somebody's right to choose, she is here today to share her amazing story. Robin, thank you so much for being here. The story of how you came into this world is intense and extremely powerful, and one that really should be shared far and wide. Can you share your story with us?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Megan. I can't claim any ownership. It was the Lord who saw me through. I couldn't save myself. During the time that my mother was pregnant for me, she attempted 3 times to abort me via saline infusion abortion. For those of you who don't know what saline infusion is, there's a small amount of the amniotic fluid that's drawn off through a deep needle biopsy, and it's replaced with this poisonous solution that's meant to scald the baby. It was meant to burn and kill me from the inside out and the outside in. And as horrific as that sounds, somehow God decided that I was to live. And so, even though my mother tried that not once, not twice, but 3 times, somehow by the grace of God, I was born alive. On March 28th, 1974, my parents went to the hospital not knowing that there was going to be a live birth. They had no layette, they had no name for me. They didn't know that I was going to need anything, so they didn't bring anything. And in that hospital room when I was born, according to our laws in America at the time, which really a lot of them haven't changed much in this department, if a baby is born alive after an abortion, there are no laws that say that that baby must be resuscitated, cared for, brought to the NICU. So many babies born alive after abortion are killed, or we call it laid aside, which they are set on a metal table or some other horrific thing. We hear stories of nurses who have had to put babies into a bucket of formaldehyde or in with medical waste, and it's absolutely horrific to think of. But my father was in the room that morning and he convinced my mom to keep me. And so I was kind of like that puppy that gets dragged home, and the kids kind of go, well, can we keep it? Can we keep it? And that was my dad. Can we keep her? Can we keep her? And so finally my mother decided to agree with him, and they looked up at the window, and there in Philadelphia, where I was born, or on the window ledge, there was a little bird, and it was first thing in the morning. And so my mother said, fine, name it Robin Dawn. And so that's my name. Yeah. I kind of got to be like the little puppy that got dragged home, but I didn't get to go home right away. I spent most of my childhood in Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And so what we don't talk about a lot is that when someone survives an abortion, it's not just cut and dry whether they live or die. There's a lot of medical care needed because of the damage that's done within. And there'll be an awful lot of physical difficulty. There is a lot of trauma and emotional difficulty that goes with it as well. And so in our survivor community, one of the things that we provide at the Abortion Survivors Network is healing and hope and wholeness and community. Most of us believe that we are alone. And for me, I found out that I was a survivor at the age of 9 after another hospitalization where I died on the table. I was brought back to life. I was very, very sick. And my maternal grandmother finally told my mother, you have to tell her. It's on her medical record. She can read. She's not dumb. She's going to figure it out. And finally, she was given permission somehow by my mom to tell me that I was an abortion survivor. At age 9, I didn't know what that even meant. I didn't have a grid for that. I didn't know what the word abortion meant. And I thought I was alone from age 9 until age 46. That's a long time to think you're the only weirdo out there that's survived this and go through life. And we find that survivors all over the world have similar experiences where they have gone through years and years of feeling alone and rejected, dealing with trauma as well as a variety of physical illnesses and problems from the abortion attempts. And yet, when they come to the Survivors Network, they find healing and hope and community.
9 is very young, and to find out you are an abortion survivor, I mean, I remember I think I found out what abortion meant when I was maybe 11. It was very jarring. It seemed like something terrible that was not celebrated, was not happily done. So yeah, I can barely imagine what it must have been like at 9 years old to find out such a thing. So without putting words into their mouths, I feel as if abortion activists or abortion supporters, given your story or given any story of any abortion survivor, would have to respond in one or two ways. They would either be compassionate and sympathize as much as is physically possible, which is hard to imagine given their support of abortion, how they justify that. Or they would simply disregard you and disregard abortion supporter or abortion survivors like you, because you're too hard to respond to. Like, you are clearly not a clump of cells. You're a human being. You always have been. And you are proof that an abortion is the direct destruction of human life, since your development as an unborn baby was not interrupted despite multiple attempts. And as a result, you are now standing on this earth indistinguishable from any other human being. Pro-life people do not force a woman to be pregnant or to give birth. They try and stop the lethal force of abortion. How do you feel about that? Would you agree with that?
Well, I've dealt with people who have taken both sides of that. I feel compassion for folks who are pro-choice who become triggered when they hear my story, because I know a lot of times that means they've been touched by abortion.
Mm-hmm.
We know statistically 1 in 3 people are touched by abortion, whether they have themselves lost a child to abortion or they've had a family member who has. And so a lot of times when people rise up and they're not compassionate and they become triggered and angry and agitated, I can have compassion for them because I know they're hurting. Mm-hmm. I've had even medical doctors throughout my life. Some of them have looked at my medical records and seen that it's listed that I'm an abortion survivor. I had one doctor that told me he doesn't believe in that, so he was going to take it off my medical record.
Wow.
I felt bad for him. I wondered why, what's going on in him? Why is he so triggered that he would want to go and do that? And I asked him something to the effect of, if you didn't believe in broken legs, would you take it off my medical record if I had a record of having had a broken leg? And he said, no, that's crazy. I said, right. And how less crazy is it that you want to take a different thing off my medical record? He went, oh, let me think about that. Yeah. So I like to ask questions that prompt people to think. I know when they're hurting, there's something else going on there. But when we look at people who they say they don't force a woman to give birth, a lot of times what we're seeing is they want to remove the consequences of the action, and the choice that the woman had was actually earlier in the process, right? But a lot of times when people are trying to come in and say that they're passionate by killing a child, they are deceived, and deceived people don't know that they're deceived. And so I usually feel quite a bit of compassion for them because I know they're hurting in some way, shape, or form. They're deceived. They don't understand fully. And, you can't really argue with them because you're not going to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. So when I share my story and I see people kind of lean in and get curious and ask questions, I'll share more, and I'll open up and I'll entertain their questions and have a dialogue with them. And that's usually much more productive than waiting for the debate to, mm-hmm. kind of butt heads with them.
Definitely. It's an argument they really like to use is obviously the rape argument, of course, and that there is no choice, that unfortunately a woman or even a young girl in some horrible circumstances has been impregnated against her will. And you touched on there that, two wrongs don't fix it, two wrongs don't make a right. Once there is a life created, who are we to destroy that life? Who are we to try and take that life away? It's a horrible situation that cannot be mended and fixed by something else horrible and traumatic,
Right. Yeah. Murder doesn't fix rape.
Exactly. Unfortunately, this is true. So one common theme I've seen so far with these interviews that I've done with abortion survivors is a strong faith in God. Whether our viewers are religious or not, I'm sure they can see how amazing that is, because, such a strong faith is quite surprising, I can imagine, to some, because you would think, having found out that, you are an abortion survivor, a lot of people would imagine there's a sort of rage and a sort of anger and sadness about the attempt on your life before you were born, because that's what it is. Many people find such a strong faith surprising, assuming that someone in your shoes would be angry and filled with sadness, and if they believed in him, angry at God. But yourself and Amy and Lodine from Abortion Survivors Network all show a level of acceptance and peace and forgiveness that is honestly amazing and really beautiful to witness. How did you come to this point, and was it difficult?
It's a great question. And that's something that we are noticing at the network that is pervasive in our community. It is something that the Lord is doing sovereignly with each survivor all over the world, as hundreds of survivors are starting to come forward and connect. We've connected with over 400 survivors so far. And what we're seeing is amazing to us, and we're still trying to figure it out. All we can say is God's gotten a hold of us. And so I know in my own personal life, I did not grow up in a churched or a saved family. We did not have relationship with Jesus. I was in quite a bit of pain due to the dysfunction in my family and the issues that were going on there. And I had an encounter with the Lord where he sovereignly healed my heart and drew me to himself. Almost every survivor I've talked to so far has some similar version of that story. Some of them grew up in families that were Christian, some did not, but all of them have a very strong love for Jesus. And we have an understanding that in the Bible, we read that in Matthew 18, verses 21 through 35, forgiveness is a gift and it's a releasing of a debt. And there is a debt that our world is starting to incur due to abortion. The blood of the unborn is crying from the ground, but we intercessorily, on behalf of the unborn, can release forgiveness. And we have this mandate on our hearts that we all come to the Survivors Network with this already intrinsically, we know this without anyone having to tell us. And so it's really neat to watch this. And when we have our leadership meetings, we talk about how, yes, we've got X number of new survivors, and it's amazing. They love the Lord and they're walking in forgiveness. And it's amazing. We're still seeing it. And we're waiting to see new survivors come in who are bitter and angry because we have material that we've prepared for that. And so far, we haven't had to really go down that road very far. So it's amazing to us as well. And all I can say is God's done something amazing all over the planet. And as we see that the blood of Jesus speaks a better word than the blood of those that are crying from the ground, and we feel that it's somehow our mandate for such a time as this, we're here.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm thankful you're here. I'm thankful you all are here and you all survived. So thank you so much for doing this interview with us, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Bless you too.